The Russians keep pushing, especially in the southeast, while former General Zaluzhny says when the Russians might be strong enough for a serious breakthrough. But we'll talk about this as well as about anything that has happened along the front lines and behind them in this situation report about the war in Ukraine. Ukraine's drone attacks continue basically daily, among them against military targets and against oil facilities. Also, the facility that launched the IRBM, the ballistic missile that hit Ukraine on the 21st, was also attacked in this in these waves of attacks. Also, at least two additional executions of prisoners of war were recorded, where Russians have once again killed Ukrainian prisoners of war after they had given themselves up. Russia has used in turn a ballistic missile with MIRV, with multiple independent re-entry vehicles, against Ukraine. I made a video about this yesterday in case you have missed it, so I'm not going to talk too much about it for today. And yesterday they also used 114 Shahed drones in an attack on Ukraine, showing the scale of the Russian attacks. We'll switch to the developments along the front line, and here we go to the region of Kursk. In Kursk, the Russians have reached the eastern part of Darino. This is directly south of Novoy Vonovka, where the Russians have previously operated, meaning that they are now at this point here as well. We've had them somewhere here, so whether this is an advance in this direction, I cannot confirm. It's probably more likely that they have come from the northwest, and the area in between is not occupied by them yet. The attack against Maino that was done with the Storm Shadow or Scalp missiles by the Ukrainians somewhat north of the area here, according to some claims, have wounded a North Korean general. That's at least what international media is spreading around. So far, obviously, we do not have a proof of this, but it might have been that a North Korean general was present there. The Ukrainian outlet Suspline has also said that now 60,000 Russians have concentrated in Kursk, once again confirming what we are talking about here for quite a while, that Russia clearly wants to push the Ukrainians out of Kursk before the next US president, Donald Trump, is going to be inaugurated. But that was already it, because while we have a lot of attacks by the Russians, so far I cannot confirm any additional gains since the last situation report from Wednesday. In the southeast of it, in Kharkiv, we have reports about Ukrainian attacks, even mechanized attacks north of Liptsi in the direction of Liboke, but no confirmation that they have been successful. So we see Ukrainian offensive activity in this direction. In last situation report, I showed you that the Ukrainians had reached this point here, and probably that forest is no longer fully under control by the Russians, but no fresh change in territory that I can confirm. On the eastern front, we have the Russians advancing in the area here. They have reached the town of Kopani. We see them in the northeast of those, which shows us an advance to this position here. And they have advanced further in the town of Terny, which is up here. Here again, they are slowly creeping forward. Every situation report or every second situation report, we have them a few houses further south. They've started here, here, it went down like this. Now we are at this point, so they're getting close to the dam for the reservoir here. They are slowly creeping forward and gaining additional ground. They are roughly at this point here now, advancing in the southern direction lately. But that was it north of the Seversky Donetsk. South of the Seversky Donetsk, we have no change in the Seversk region, but we do have changes in the area south of Chasiv Yar. Here we have on various positions, we have the Russians now along the canal. This is here. Up here is Chasiv Yar. We see it here, so directly west of Klishivka. They are on the western side of the canal already. Here they are directly at the canal, west of Andrivka. And we have them here, again, west of Andrivka in another position. So we have them advancing roughly here, here, and here at this point. They are clearly pushing in these directions and are trying to cross the canal on a wide area. Further south, no change in Toretsk that I can confirm. Now, there are claims of additional Russian advances inside of Toretsk, but I cannot confirm it. I do not have any visual evidence of this. So we switch over to the area of Pokrovsk, and here we have the Ukrainians still operating in an area mostly held by the Russians. This is directly north of what was the name of it? Liboke? No, Novorodivka, here, the closest they came to Pokrovsk. We had the Ukrainians operating along these trees here. Here, again and again, they did counterattacks. There is a mine, I think it's rough. No, it's here. Here they have even recaptured the area, and now we have fresh presence of them right here at this point. So roughly here. In this point they were attacked and their Bradley was destroyed, but it shows us that the Ukrainians still do counterattacks in this area here, basically between Krasny Yar and Novorodivka. Here there are still Ukrainian counterattacks into the Russians, clearly aiming at delaying the Russians in their attempts to reach Pokrovsk. That was it from the Pokrovsk area, but we do have changes in the direction of Kurakhove. Now, I have no changes up here that are confirmed and significant, but at Dalnie, we not just have the Russians having taken control over the town itself, but we also have them southeast advancing off Kurakhove. As you can see, the area here is now under their control as well. They are starting to pressure Kurakhove from the south after taking Dalnie here. They are getting closer and closer. This is at this point here. They've already reached this here. They are increasing the pressure. The Russians are reporting Ukrainian counterattacks inside of Kurakhove. Whether they have been successful, I have no confirmation though. Further south, we have the Russians closing in on Ilinka. Here we have a geolocation of this as well. They are directly north of it. That should be at this position here. So, and the eastern part, the Ukrainians continue their withdrawal. At the same time, the Russians are advancing, the Ukrainians have advanced at Trudove. Here we have a geolocation of the Ukrainians at this point, where a Ukrainian trench is being shelled by the Russians, showing a permanent Ukrainian presence at this point. So the actual control of the Russians is significantly further south at this point. Advances of the Russians have come close to Romanivka though, and this, as you can see on the map, is obviously a very dangerous situation for the Ukrainians inside of this area. Basically, they need to weigh a fast withdrawal that makes it safe that they can't be completely encircled, but gives the Russian additional ground or hold out until the point that the encirclement becomes a real threat and thus gain time. The current situation is obviously that from the Ukrainian side, they seem to be confident enough that they can hold out for somewhat longer. That's why we do not see them giving up this area just yet, but it can't be too far in the future. Further in the west, we have a significant change though, where the Russians have, first of all, they have reached Rostoline. This is in the area of Velika Novosilka, here where the Ukrainian counterattack has happened. We have the Russians reaching Rostolne. This was confirmed by a Ukrainian mill blogger that the enemy entered Rostolne and trenched in the outer houses, basically saying that they have reached this here and are gaining a foothold in it. The Russians have also advanced to the southeast of it. They are here. We have a geolocation of this as well. And the most drastic development has happened to the south of it. Here the Russians are right in front, roughly a kilometer in front of Velika Novosilka. So they have advanced up to here by now, and this is a gain of at least, they gained full control of at least 5.5 kilometers in the western direction, and they advanced even further than this, even though they were likely repulsed. They have basically over the last few days gained all of this here. This is rolling up the Ukrainian positions from the east that are probably mostly directed towards the south. This is also creating additional problems, as obviously a lot of the fortifications here were assuming that their western flank, that the eastern flank, their left flank, is secure. This is now causing additional problems as they're slowly being pushed towards from the side and being pushed out of their positions. And in the last 3 days, this wasn't just slowly, it was over 5 kilometers where the Russians gained a solid control, and they have advanced even further than this. So as the situation in the southeast is problematic and dangerous, we have the former commander-in-chief, General Zaluzhny, giving an interview here, and he said he wrote that the Russians cannot advance 150 to 200 kilometers a week. So what some say that this is a breakthrough and that the Russians are collapsing the Ukrainian front. This is simply not true. The advance of the Russians is still slow. It's still in small gaps. Now, obviously, 5 kilometers in 3 days is breathtakingly fast compared to last year, but it's not a fast advance. This is no longer situational, no longer positional fighting, but this is still not a war of maneuver. And to reach the ability to conduct a war of maneuver, Zaluzhny says in 2027, the Russians will be strong enough to do that. Until then, they have no choice but to continue with attritional warfare against the Ukrainians, as the Ukrainian lines are still strong enough. Now, obviously, the Ukrainians are seriously under pressure, but we talked about it a couple of times in the past. So far, the Russians are not able to switch to a war of maneuver, and so far the Ukrainian front lines repeatedly have to be pulled back. They have to fight delaying actions all the time, and they have trouble with manpower, with the number of manpower and the quality, but a collapse of the front line has, at least for now, not happened yet. The Russians are preparing for the future years of the war as well. They have decided the budget. In 2025, 6.31% of the GDP will be spent on the military officially. That's roughly equivalent to 133 billion US dollars. In 2026, they said they're going to spend 126, so a little less. And in 2027, they aim at 129 billion US dollars for the military. Now, we have also information from South Korea, what North Korea likely received for its military aid, especially its soldiers. The South Koreans have observed North Korean tankers going back and forth from Russian territory to North Korea, and in total they estimated that Russia has received over 1 million barrels of oil. They also expected to have received the new air defense systems as well as missiles. The exact details, what systems they have received, is unclear, but some speculation said it might be S-400, as North Korea can produce shorter ranged air defense systems by itself, even though that would be interesting, as Russia has not given S-400 systems to other nations, other allies. Basically, they have ordered it because it wasn't able to hand it over. With North Korea, it is apparently able to pull those ahead of Iran and of India. Obviously, that will strain the relations as well here. There's news about international aid as well. The US will the US president uses the Presidential Drawdown Authority for another 275 million US dollars. It's mostly artillery munition, so 155, 105 mortars, etc. It's other than that, it's anti-tank weapons of various kinds, TOW, 84 and Javelin, and that's the interesting part. It includes NBC gear to approach NBC threats, basically gas masks and other equipment like this, a clear reaction to the increased usage of chemical weapons by the Russians in this war. Germany has also delivered new aid ammunition for the Marder IFV, 47 MRAPs, a TRML-4D radar system for aerial surveillance, 4 additional Panzerhaubitze 2000, that's the self-propelled howitzer, 155 shells, 7 M109 barrels. That's important because the Ukrainians by now use a lot of M109s, and these barrels take wear from firing. So after a certain time, these barrels need to be replaced, or the accuracy has zero or is diminishing massively. And there Germany is delivering 7 additional barrels. Also drones and other items were given to Ukraine. Spain is going to give them 9 additional Leopard 2A4s that are going to be handed over soon. This is probably not a new announcement, but 9 are about to be delivered, as well as a Hawk air defense battery that was promised a while ago. And in Sweden, from Sweden, we have the Minister of Defense writing here on Twitter that Sweden will invest into the mass production of long-distance weapons for the Ukrainians, long-range missiles and long-range drones. So not just drones, but also missiles as well. Obviously important for the Ukrainians to be able to have their own control over their long-distance strike capability. This is why Ukraine is working on that. But that was already it from me for today. If you enjoyed this situation report, please give it a thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm. Leave a comment what do you think about the current developments. And if you're new here, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. This channel is only possible because of the support of viewers like you. If you like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. But that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.